Hello, this is Jay Mitchell, and we are back for another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. So let's get right into it. So first we have Trump says he'd disregard NATO treaty, urged Russian attacks on U.S. allies, do whatever the hell they want. And that's from the Washington Post, posted by Clorox, and that's a cross post from the same politics subreddit. And I said every day I get more and more convinced that Trump is a DNC asset who goes out of his way to make himself and the GOP look bad. A lot of people say, oh, Trump's a Russian asset. Well, I wouldn't say that. I think he's more of a DNC asset. That's kind of, the Trump is a Russian asset, so that's kind of the normie position. Well, Trump is a DNC asset. That's more of the autistic position, I would say. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have a 13-year-old girl was gang raped by 7 illegals, and this is how CNN covers it from End Wokeness on Twitter, and I posted that, and that's him. Their headline was: "An alleged gang rape shocks Italy and provides fodder for an ascendant far right." And I said, the faster CNN and the rest of the alphabet media go out of business, the better. I support free speech, but what I don't support is mega control corporations controlling the narrative, and that's what the alphabet media is. That's why I think that's why I'm glad to see them slowly dying off right now. I only wish it could be faster. Then we have Am I Wrong from Trent Steele on YouTube, and I posted that, and that was a meme he posted. I think it was a guy from The Office. I think it's Jim from The Office. I don't know what really The Office. I've never watched that show. But he's pointing to the black and whiteboard. If it's obviously seen how old man can be the U.S. president, we don't need a U.S. president. And I said he spelled federal government wrong. I think the president's mostly just a figurehead, if anything else. He doesn't really do anything. He's just kind of there to be the face of the government, but other than that, he isn't really, he's just kind of just there. And, that's just going to show you we don't really need any government, I would say. Most people just govern themselves completely fine. And, just having a senile old man as president just shows you that's correct. Then we have Let's Talk About Utah and the Good Guys from Anarcho Federation, and that's a both comment video from YouTube, and they added conservatives are supposed to attack children this way. I don't care what your political ideology is. I think it's okay to bully any child means you're I think that's a goat emoji and a shit emoji. I guess I don't know, but yeah, I think that's about how they went after the cisgender tomboy athlete because they thought they were transgender. I personally do think I don't think transgender athletes are that fair. With that being said, you got to make sure that they are transgender in the first place. So that's, I guess, that, ultimately I think, you should have that the sex assigned at birth should be on the birth certificate, and that's how you can know or not. I don't think you should need to do genital inspections or anything like that. That's my thoughts on that issue. But ultimately, if you do want to do whatever you want, you do have the force of the state on your side, which I don't really care for that, but it's sadly a reality, and we have to acknowledge that. Then we have, I told you we'd be apologizing for this dipshit immediately, from Globi News, and that's from Manaconda413, it's a tweet from Globi News, and the tweet was breaking: Argentina President Javier Milei called for the demolition of Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, in order to bring the Messiah. And I said, because when you support someone, you have to agree with everything else they say or else. Looks like it was taken out of context as well, so that just goes to show you that, I personally... I don't think Milei's perfect, but this is just an obvious hit piece against him by by a propaganda user, and that's that's pretty much all of Reddit to some extent, all social media. That's all pretty much propaganda, and we just have to kind of cope with that, I guess. Then we have r/Libertarian Uncensored discusses and grades the U.S. Vice President's number 42 Walter Mondale. And I said Jimmy Carter's VP and a senator from Minnesota. He held the seat that was occupied by former VP Hubert Humphrey before him. Mondale had a relatively uneventful time as VP. He cast his only tie-breaking vote as president of the Senate in 1977, which allowed a Social Security financing bill to be passed. After leaving office, he was the Dems nominee for post in 1984, famously losing all but his home state of Minnesota and D.C. to incumbent POTUS Ronald Reagan. Later, he lost the 2002 U.S. Senate election in Minnesota to Norm Coleman, giving him the honor of losing elections in all 50 states. Final grade C-, and that's my thoughts on him. The next we have, in honor of President's Day next Monday, rank the U.S. presidents of your lifetime. And I said, from worst to best, I would say 5, George W. Bush. Pretty much all societal strife we have today is a result of his administration. Pushed through the Iraq War, which led to countless needless deaths in addition to the war in Afghanistan, which we were stuck in forever. Was pretty much military-industrial complex the president. The other guys here weren't much better in that regard, but at least they didn't get us into our 2 biggest wars of the century so far. Also, the Patriot Act set so many negative precedents and honestly has to be the worst piece of law signed by a president in my lifetime. Number 4, I think, is Donald Trump. I'm not really one of the orange man bad people, but the guy is clearly a blowhard who just loves to get people riled up over pointless bullshit. I do think his election was good in regards to questioning the official narrative, but during his time as POTUS, he surrounded himself with the same neolib/neocon advisors that he supposedly campaigned against, and seemed much more to listen to people like John Bolton rather than people like Ron Paul or Vivek Ramaswamy. Also, the pro-Trump and anti-Trump circle jerks are annoying as hell, especially after nearly a decade. I don't know how they're going to bury him when he dies with all the people who want to either worship or piss at his grave. Number 3, I put Joe Biden. An obviously slaying out old man by his time as POTUS. It's pretty clear he isn't running the show, but that's probably true for all the guys here. Otherwise, it's pretty much a placeholder for not being Trump. 2, I put Barack Obama. I'm never going to forgive Obama for if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon, which pretty much kickstarted the modern identity politics era. At the very least, he knew how to act as part as president, even though he was really just as an interchangeable neoliberal like everyone else here. Campaign on Hope and Change 2008, but was really just more of the same shit that we saw in preceding and succeeding administrations. Number 1, I put Bill Clinton, an Epstein Island frequent flyer who quote-unquote likes them young. Clinton at the very least tried to push for a third-way centrist approach. The U.S. was still bombing countries like Somalia and Yugoslavia, but at least it ran a budget surplus that's almost unthinkable today. I would put all these guys in my bottom 10 to 15 overall. We don't live in a particularly good era of presidents. I blame neoliberalism. And that's my thoughts on that. And we have, can we draw a straight line between this and an even more urgent roadmap TBI from CNBC.com by T. Sturb, and that's crosswords in the Futurology subreddit. Walmart, Delta, Chevron, and Starbucks are using AI to monitor employee messages. I said, supporting UBI for voluntary taxation is probably as far left as I get. I think it's a great way to combat corporate authoritarianism like this. With that being said, I think if people want their tax dollars to go to something else, though, that they should be able to do so. I want people to always be able to decide what to do with their own resources. That's my thoughts on that issue. Then next we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. apologizes for controversial $7 million Super Bowl ad aired by Anti-Vax Pack from Yahoo.com by Baton Fertan. And I said, I don't know why he felt the need to apologize. The ad was fine, and I'm not an RFK Jr. supporter. Then we have, these are the people running the country right now. Instead of supporting the state of Israel, we should end all taxpayer funding to the state of Israel and impose economic sanctions on the state of Israel that makes it illegal to conduct any commerce for any entity in the state of Israel. And that's Rancher Silver 1, and it's a tweet from Joshua Reed Equal, who said, liberals need support separate from leftists and tankists, just conservatives are separating from MAGA fascists. If we create a political coalition to unite these two factions under our banner, we wouldn't lose a single election. That was the Ukraine-Israel, and I said, for the Rancher Silver 1, they said, instead of supporting state of Israel, we should all taxpayer funding to state of Israel. I said, I agree with that part, disagree with the second part. Sanctions go against free trade. I think a voluntary boycott will be the libertarian perspective. Then we have waiting for the G interview next from Tom 13, and that's a fake Reuters article. PM Maloney claims Italy's ancestral right to all of Europe, North Africa, and Western Asia in rare interview of Tucker Carlson, and that's obviously how it's not any real interview that, but it's obviously hinting at going about how Putin, he said, well, Ukraine was historically Russian land, so that makes our invasion justified. And I guess I would agree with that, I don't think, we should be invading other countries, but ultimately it does come down to who has the force to do what, and if people can justify what they justify, like Putin justifying his invasion, he has the power to do what he wants to, and sadly, that's just how it is currently, That's why, the state isn't your friend, especially when it's run by someone like Vladimir Putin, I would say. Then we have, I keep saying the revolutionary left is not going to make it from Constance on Twitter, and that was an image he shared. It was Stephen Campbell tweeted, self-discipline, listen to yourself, and the guy replied, question mark, self-discipline is right-wing concept. And I said, people like this border on self-parody. The thing is, increasingly, there are hundreds of thousands of people like that, if not millions. And now eventually any dissent at all is now going to be seen as a right-wing concept. And that's increasingly why, I don't really care for that label anymore. It's like fascist or Nazi or incel, they just use it for anyone who dissents at all. And, that's why you just can't let them use it to stop you. Then we have Trump's knock on the door from Farrah and Chimney, and that's an archive link from The Atlantic. The former president of the States are formulating plans to deport millions of migrants. And, I don't think that's very libertarian, but ultimately, as I said, it does depend on what the state has the force to do, I personally am fine with migrants, but when they're all homeless on the streets and taking up all the space in the airports, and you might be forced to house them, then I might have a bit of a problem with them. I'm for open borders, but increasingly the migrants, they are on the welfare, and I don't like that. And also they are, I would say, taking up a lot of space, and I don't think that's good either. I think, if people want to house migrants, I think they should be able to, but, I don't think they should be forced to do so. And right now, I think that's what might happen in the near future. Then we have Join My Movement from Flagstuff369, and they link to their subreddit r/America First Movement. Spread the word. And I personally don't think America First. Let's see what they say. Their beliefs are the America First movement is anti-foreign aid. I agree with that. Anti-war, anti-communist, anti-fascist. I agree with all those. Nationalistic, patriotic. And I personally wouldn't agree with the last part. I think nationalism is inherently collectivist, and that's why I personally wouldn't care for it. But I would agree that it's pretty much that. I would agree that's mostly good. I would say. Then we have a lot of this kind of stuff has been coming out this week. Anti-Gay Proud Boy was a secret gay porn star from Boilovich, and that's a cross-post from the Unite Against the Right subreddit. And it links to an advocate post. Gay adult film entertainer Sergeant Miles arrested for role in the January 6th insurrection. And, I personally, it just goes to show you that a lot of politics, I think, is kind of projection. And I think this is a good example of that, I would say. Then we have r/Libertarian Uncensored discusses and grades U.S. Vice Presidents number 44, Dan Quayle. First of the VPs chronologically is still alive. Surprisingly, he's younger than all living presidents except Obama. Quayle was a senator from Indiana upon his election as VP. First VP since Charles W. Fairbanks did not cast any tie-breaking votes as president of the Senate while serving a full term. Was known for having a lot of gas as VP, like misspelling potato as potato with an E at the end. After leaving office, he famously advised fellow Hoosier Mike Pence on how to certify the highly contentious post-election of 2020 as president of the Senate, something Quayle himself had done for the 1992 election. Final grade, C-. So that's my thoughts on him. Then we have Media Bias, Subtle and Not So Subtle Ways, Journalist Length News from John Stossel on YouTube, and I posted that. And I don't really comment on anything on that, but it just is interesting how increasingly people are realizing it, and thanks to independent media and social media, people can turn away from the media, and that's why I think it'll be good when it dies, because it just exists to divide people and push narratives. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Black-only swim times, Black-only lounges, the rise of race segregation on Canadian universities from the National Post, and I posted that. And I said, honestly, the universities are beyond saving at this point. I linked to a post from a political compass meeting subreddit that says Just Canada things, and it said, report University of Waterloo bans straight white males for applying for recent job openings. I also added, this used to be considered bad, and it was a old post from the history porn subreddit. They said, sign placed in front of the Memphis Zoo on Thursday, Negro Day, the only day of the week that African Americans were allowed was in 1959. And I think, increasingly, the woke progressives are increasingly pushing for segregation and BIPOC-only spaces, and I don't think that's very libertarian. I think, if people want to segregate, I think they should be able to. With that being said, I don't particularly care for it, and I'll try to call it out as much as I can. So, let's see if there's anything else. I think that might be it. And I think we're going to wrap up there. I'll see you guys next episode. Bye.